morning, Americans. It's Friday. Glad you're here with us today on Ask the Theologian. Welcome as we take your biblical, theological, and worldview questions. And, of course, no doubt have a tremendous time doing so on this Friday. And if you have a question you'd like to submit live, use the word question first. That'll help us out in the any of the chat boxes, wherever it is you are. Or if you would prefer, you can also go to asktheologian.com, where you can submit your question live during the program or anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that'll be fun. You know, Sunday, this coming Sunday, we've got two broadcasts, one at 9:45 a.m. Mountain Time. We've got the Why broadcast, and we looked at why are some people charismatic. Now, this Sunday, we are going to actually be a little bit in the same department, but we're going to look at why are some people involved in the New Apostolic Reformation, NAR, N-A-R, New Apostolic Reformation. We're going to consider that this Sunday at 9:45 a.m., and then we'll have Absalom's Rebellion at 10:45 a.m., and we will look forward to that and have a good time with it all. Well, I promised yesterday I would get started with the anonymous question that is, let me find it here. Here we go. Question number one on this Friday: how does the earth renew itself after the seals and the trumpets are finished before the millennial reign? Okay. We've got a number of things we need to place in there. First of all, the millennial reign is a time of the restoration of all things. We could go to Acts chapter 3. We could go to Isaiah chapter, 11? I think that's right. The wolf and the lamb passage. A number of these passages throughout both the Hebrew Scriptures and in the book of Revelation. And the book of Acts, and I suspect also even in the Gospels, in the words of Jesus. We would be able to find that definitely the assumption is right. The earth is renewed. I don't know if I would say if it renews itself, but it is renewed. Now, after the seals and the trumpets, the trumpets, of course, and the bowls of wrath being part of the seventh seal, so after the tremendous, we'll say ecological destruction, in addition to a lot of other destruction, but the tremendous ecological destruction that comes with the tribulation, the seven seals, you've got most of the world, the trees, the waters, all of this kind of stuff, destroyed. How does it renew itself? Two possibilities. And I think I'm actually going to go with the second. The first possibility can't be discounted too much, however. But the first possibility is God miraculously restores it. And so, just like in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, we shall all be changed, that passage in 1 Corinthians, just like that kind of instant restoration from death to life, from mortal to immortality, from corruption to incorruption. You could argue that there's going to be that kind of an instantaneous renewal of the earth. However, there's another possibility. And before I get to that possibility, let me remind you that the fires of, pardon me if I have my details off just a bit here. The general statement will be true. The fires of the closing battles, I'll just leave it at that. The fires of the closing battles, the mess from the closing battles, is going to remain. Is it 7 years, if I recall, that these fires will burn for 7 years? So that's not an instantaneous kind of renewal of the earth. So I think you might actually be right in saying, how does the earth renew itself? There could be, the earth doesn't renew itself, the Creator renews it instantaneously. That's option one. Option two is, now, buckle up, Buttercup, if you happen to be a tree hugger. Option two is, this is what the earth is made to do. It is made to renew itself. And it is made to renew itself very quickly. I know there's all this talk out there about how we're destroying the earth. I'm sure in some localized ways, whatnot, maybe there's ways to do this, but I seriously doubt it. I think that the earth renews itself. Let me give an example that might go against what I'm saying. Right here where I live in Taos, New Mexico, out to the west of us, there's what's called the Mesa. That's Spanish for table, and it's flat out there. It's in a valley. There's mountains off to the west, there's mountains to the east, but here's this flat part, the Mesa. The Mesa is almost completely sagebrush. And sagebrush is about, I'll say a 3-foot high bush when it's full grown, kind of scrubby. The wood's not really good for much. You can't, it's hard to burn, and it has a very distinctive smell to it, which some people like, to chase evil spirits away and things like that, but you wouldn't want to use it like for firewood or something like that to heat your home. And it's aromatic, shall we say. And it's somewhat invasive, and that's all that's out there. And it as invasive, it kind of kills everything. Now, I have heard that, say, prior to World War II, that was grassland, and that there was lots of sheep herding out there back 100 years ago. The story is that they overgrazed it, and by being overgrazed, it destroyed the land so that the sagebrush took over, and that's all that's there. Possibly some truth to that. But here's my argument against it. Sagebrush grows about 6,500 feet above sea level to 7,500 feet above sea level. That's the range. You get below 6,500, you don't have sagebrush. You get above 7,500, you don't have sagebrush. And you can pick any place in the Rockies between 6,500 and 7,500 that's flat ground, and there is sagebrush. Did we really overgraze the entire Rockies of all of that place? I kind of think that's just the natural habitat of it. So, here's my point. Can we really destroy it? Or if you let the earth leave well enough alone, plus let's remove the curse. Take that part out of it. I really kind of think the earth is made to renew itself, and to renew itself quite quickly. I actually think that about the human body as well. You take a child, that's got a great immune system, as a baby or a child. I know this from my grandchildren, and I know it from my children and whatnot. You take a child, they will get sick lickety-split. They are fine, and the next morning they wake up and they've got a high fever, and they are terrible, and you think, oh my goodness, and by the end of the day, it's gone. Their immune system caught it, but their immune system healed itself. I think the earth really does kind of have an immune system that you can throw all of this stuff at it, and especially if you remove the curse, but even to some degree if you don't remove the curse, it will renew itself. I've seen this in forest fires, how the forest renews itself. In wildfires, on prairie fires and whatnot, how the prairie renews itself, rivers renew themselves. I think that there's a very quick time period in which this happens, and sometimes unbelievably fast, even under today's world. Excellent question. I appreciate that. Anonymous question about the renewal of the earth. Let's go to Robert in Holly Springs, Mississippi for the second question of the day, and that is 1 Corinthians, based upon 1 Corinthians 14, verse 21. And let's read that first. Let's read that first. There we go. It says, in the law it is written, with men of other tongues and other lips I will speak unto this people, and yet, for all that, they will not hear me, saith the Lord. A quote from the Old Testament. We could check the reference, but it is a quote from the Old Testament. The question in 1 Corinthians 14:21, wouldn't the reference to this people indicate that tongues is mainly for Israel? Thank you, Robert. Why didn't you tell me that before last Sunday when I gave the lesson on why some people are charismatic? And I did give the my belief that the spiritual gifts were for Israel and for the kingdom. And then Robert had the follow-up question the other day that we didn't get into this also, and that was the follow-up question were whether there were any Gentiles. And so following up to that, any Gentiles that had the spiritual gifts. I said yes, but does this question that? This supports my idea that the spiritual gifts were about the kingdom. Does it go against what we said the other day, that I think there were some Gentiles that had these gifts? So let's jump back into it with that little bit of background. With men of other tongues and other lips will I speak unto this people. There we go. And yet for all that they will not hear me. Now, that is most likely, but not conclusively, most likely that is about speaking in other languages when it says other tongues and other lips. But again, you couldn't absolutely prove that that does not include a heavenly language of tongues. Just the normal reading would be, this is the various language. Now, I think that it does indicate, in fact, maybe indicate is too weak of a word, it tells us that tongues is for this people. But does it tell us that tongues are only in this people? I don't think we could completely go there. So you could create a scenario in which the other tongues and other lips were outsiders speaking unto this people. And yet for all that they will not hear me, saith the Lord. I don't think you have a lot of evidence for that, but I think as we discussed the other day on that particular question, there is some possibility that some of these are Gentiles. When you read in Acts chapter 2, they come with other tongues and other lips, but they're all Jews in Acts chapter 2. I think certainly the preponderance of the evidence is tongues and the various spiritual gifts are, as it says here, unto this people, even if someone else had them. Now, that does bring a point on continuationism or cessationism, in that God is no longer dealing directly today with this people. Today there's neither Jew nor Gentile. So again, the various charismatic gifts would have to have a brand new purpose from the purpose given in the Scripture. And to make that purpose, you would have to make it up. Robert in Holly Springs, Mississippi. Appreciate that. Let's go to the Buffalo National River in Arkansas, and Deb has a question about the Olympics. This one's a little dated here, but why are the Olympic opening ceremonies made to be so controversial and, in my opinion, symbolic? When did these type of ceremonies turn dark? There's more to the question. I'm going to stop right here. Obviously, there was a lot of controversy this year on the Olympic opening ceremonies. But I would guess that if you go back the last several cycles, there was controversy most of the time. The International Olympic Committee, which is as woke as you can get, and probably, if you're listening, International Olympic Committee, you are probably signing your death warrant. There is no future for you. Go woke, go broke. The Olympics will, especially if they continue. Let's leave aside the things of the stupid ceremonies for a moment. Let's look at the boxing thing, where they have biological men fighting women and think this is a good thing. It is despicable, is really the only word. Despicable to have a man go in, punch a woman in the breast and in the face, and call that sport. It is sickening. It is disgusting. You know, ceremonies, I'll venture out here a little bit. I know not all of you will agree with this, but it's okay. Ceremony is this stupid thing they do at the beginning and they'll do another one at the end. It's the sport we're there for. But until the Olympic Committee says we did the dumbest thing that has ever been done in the history of the Olympics, and we will never do it again, and we resign our positions as the International Olympic Committee, I'm done with the Olympics. They're just not that fantastic. You get a few good moments, but who needs it? So, you know, I don't know if you'd call that a boycott or you just call it, you know, what do I want to watch that kind of filth and garbage for? Now, let's go back away from boxing and into the Olympic opening ceremony. When did this happen? I don't know. It's been several cycles. You know what I ought to do? I remember the 1984 Olympics. 1984, the Summer Olympics were in Los Angeles. I was, I don't know, 19 years old maybe. And yeah, I would have been 19. And I was away from home for the summer, working a job. And several of us in the evenings, what is there to do when you have no money and, you know, you're there away from home? We watched the Olympics. Every night we all got together, we watched the Olympics. And it was good memories, it was fun, it was wholesome, it was, you know, everything about it. And the country was kind of patriotic. It was in Los Angeles. Ronald Reagan was president. It was a good experience. I'd like to go. You can probably find it. I don't know. Let's see if we can. We're not going to watch it, but can we find the 1984 Olympics opening ceremony? I think, I mean, I a little bit remember a few things. Oh, yeah, okay, so it's on YouTube. Opening Ceremonies 1984 Olympics Part 1. So we could go back and watch it. But here's a little what it says. Let's see, it began with a countdown clock from 60 to 1, followed by the ringing of citywide church bells and large cannons throughout Los Angeles. The artistic segment of the feature featured a showcase of American culture, including music, dance, and visual effects. This was the first time the artistic segment was presented before the ceremonial portion of the event, a format that has been followed since then. So maybe it was the opening right then. You said, when did this turn dark? Maybe it started right here. The ceremonial segment included welcoming speeches, the hoisting of flags, parade of the athletes from each participating country. You know, that's kind of what I remember down through the years is everybody marches in with their flag, you know, the music's playing. It's kind of a big parade. It's cool. Not this weirdo stuff. Even let's set the darkness and the satanic stuff. Just weird stuff. Like, who wants to? I don't want to go to a church that has interpretive dance where they got girls, you know, going around. This is some sort of worship or something. I'm not into weird stuff. You give me a celebration. You give me, you know, a parade. I like a parade. That's not weird to walk through with their flags. You know, everyone's proud and strutting their stuff. You know, okay, I'm good with that. The Olympic cauldron was lit by a person of African descent for the first time, and the ceremony also featured a presentation of the Antwerp flag to Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley as a symbol of goodwill. Formally opened by President Ronald Reagan, broadcast on ABC Sports. Okay. Showcasing American culture and innovation. That's what they used to be. But maybe starting this artistic thing, they probably, I suspect, I don't know, I suspect they had some Native American dancers. They probably had you know, Yankee Doodle playing a drum, those kind of American culture kind of things. Maybe ushering that in is what gave it. So then you take an artistic moment and give it to woke people, it absolutely is going to turn dark. Full of symbolism and all this kind of weird stuff, because that's what these people do. So let me go on with the question. Would you consider the ceremonies to be satanic rituals? I'm going to stop right there in the middle of the question. I didn't watch it. I haven't even watched the little replays of the sick, disgusting things that were going on there. So I'm not sure that I have enough opinion. I've seen still photos and read a few of the articles. You know, it looks like they made a mockery of the Last Supper. They say, no, it wasn't the Last Supper. It was the whatever, Bacchus, you know, some pagan thing. And if that's true, I would say to the Olympic Committee, you guys are really a special kind of stupid, aren't you? That nobody there would recognize how this is going to come across? Can't you hire somebody with a brain to work for you that's going to consider these things? I mean, we do it in a church. Oh, how's that going to communicate? How's that going to come across? If you can't do it and you're artistic, quit. Quit. Be done. You know you got a worldwide audience. So even if they want, oh, that was just a recreating something, whatever, a Bacchus that nobody knows about. You liar, liar, pants on fire. You think we're stupid is the problem, and we're not. So is it satanic ritual? I'm a little more hesitant to go there than a lot of people are. I would just say it's woke ritual, definitely. It's pagan ritual. It's anti-God ritual. If that's satanic ritual, and you might be able to argue it is, then yeah, that's what it is. It's humanism. It's a celebration of debauchery. So yeah, we do have to remember there is a degree in which the Olympics have been that since they were a glorification of man since the very beginning. There can be a godly kind of humanism. We've forgotten about this because we only know secular humanism. But there was a humanism in the Reformation that said, hey, man ought to achieve the very best he can be. And we could talk about that another day. But that's not what you've got in these opening ceremonies. Let me go on. Would you consider those ceremonies to be satanic rituals? And if so, is this their way of worshiping their God? You know, those who do not worship need to worship. There is a longing to worship. And so you've got people that are not interested in God at all, but they will have rites of passage. They'll have secret ceremonies. They'll have certain music things that go. It is a form of their worship, because there's such an expression of that you have to, I'll say even sing, you have to sing out to a greater being. And this is definitely what they're working to do. So, in that sense of satanic ritual, yes. Thanks, Deb. I really haven't watched the Olympics. I don't want to just sound, it's because I'm so righteous that I haven't watched the Olympics. It's because I've been too busy to watch the Olympics. I'm trying to get ready for the retreat. I got a book to write between now and then, so I've been working during the Olympics. If I wasn't working, would I have watched? I don't know. I'm probably not. I don't really like to sit and watch TV. But a good way to put it, John. Secular humanism has come a long way, baby. With a tip of the hat to Virginia Slims. Thomas and Jamie up in Lilliwop, Washington, have the next question of the day. Son of Man is a term used in the Gospels, Acts, and Revelation to refer to Jesus Christ as Messiah. I'm going to stop right there. You're exactly right, especially because you put as Messiah. It is not just a term to refer to Jesus Christ, but it is a term to refer to the one who will sit upon the Davidic throne, Messiah. They go on to say, in the Old Testament, the term seems to be a generic reference to humanity from Numbers to Jeremiah. You are right. And they give an example in Ezekiel chapter 2, verse 3, and Ezekiel is where we see it in the Old Testament more than any other place. Ezekiel chapter 2, verse 3, he said to me, Son of man, I send thee to the children of Israel, to a rebellious nation. Now, this Son of Man here is just, it's Ezekiel. He said unto me, Ezekiel, I send thee. Now, don't be confused by, I'm even going to put that in a different color there. Don't be confused by the capital S. That's just because it's the beginning of a sentence. Remember, King James doesn't use quotation marks. So normally we would say, and he said to me, comma, open quote, Son of Man, beginning of a paragraph. This is, or beginning of a sentence. This is the beginning of what he said to me. So that's the only reason that is capitalized. And many other times you would be able to find Son of Man in the book of Ezekiel. If it's not at the beginning of a sentence, it's not capitalized. And it's just referring to humanity, or in this case, Ezekiel. So the question is, why in the book of Ezekiel is the term used as a personal address 94 times instead of a general description? Okay. So we've got a couple of things here going. One, we've got Son of Man as a messianic term in the New Testament. Two, we've got Son of Man as a general term, it's humanity. Three, we've got Son of Man in a specific usage, it's a personal address, hey you, Son of Man. Let me speak to you, and not a general description. So three ways that we can take it. I think this is one of those phrases that must make you pause. We've got several words that must make you pause. Here is a phrase. You got to stop and look into it. I think that you can take a You could probably do a fairly quick search here, as you've obviously done because you know 94 times it's a personal address. Through computer software, pull all the Son of Man, look at all of them that have the definite article in front of it. The Son of Man. That probably right there is going to bring you to say this is when it's messianic, is when it has that definite article. Sorry, my mind was going on to the next thing I was going to say. Where in Daniel you've got the reference to the Son of Man being Christ. Daniel 7. And after these beasts, let's see. Here we go. Daniel 7:13. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man. Now here, what I want you to notice is that Son here is also capitalized, and we have the definite article. Now, notice that this is not the beginning of a sentence. This is capitalized to help us recognize that the translators are saying this is deity. And King James was hesitant to do that. They only did it when absolutely it is deity. If there was a question, they would leave it uncapitalized. So there's no question on this as far as they're concerned. And I think it's the presence of the capital S, Son of Man, singular, one of them. This capital S is different than this capital S. The only reason you've got this, I'm going to see if I can change that maybe to green. There we go. The only reason that you've got this capital S is because it's the beginning of a sentence. It's just a grammatical rule. It doesn't have any symbolism in it whatsoever. So here you have the particular address. Over here you have the reference to the Messiah, and then we could look up others. We won't take the time to do it, but there's the others that are just general, you happen to be the Son of Man, that is, you're born of mankind, that is, you're human. Why? Can I give you an answer that's not all that fun? I think because that's the way we use language. Language is kind of arbitrary, contextual, and it makes sense in all three ways to do this. Sometimes it's more emphasized in one way or another based upon its context, but it all works, which is why, again, I think we have to take such care when we come to interpreting the Word of God to make sure that we are actually checking out the, I'll say, the nuance of that particular context. You know, when I was a child, I spake as a child. And the way I spake as a child, I used to say, I used to honor and promote when a particular translation was consistent in the way they translated a word. The more I've studied language and the translation from Hebrew and Greek, the more I've said that is actually a sign of poor intellect rather than strong intellect. You know, this word equals that word means you just don't have enough vocabulary. You don't have enough insight. It's like, I know enough Spanish to make me kind of dangerous. I can, if I am somewhere and had to do it, I can communicate what I need. But, also need to sneeze there. But, whew, is it going to go away? I think so. I should make me a sneeze picture. The people listening to my Spanish would know immediately. He doesn't know much. Yeah, that is a word for this. And even in one sense is the proper word. But it's not the word we would use in this context. We would use this other word. So, the phrase "son of man" is one of those kind of things in a little bit different sense, that you have to look at it and you have to say, okay, this word is used, but what's the meaning of this word? What is that being carried out? Thanks. Lily Wop, Washington, I appreciate that. The anonymous donor has a question. Well, wait, P.O. Box 3181, Taos, New Mexico 87571. For the anonymous donor, or randywhiteministries.org. There's a donate button. The anonymous donor. Well, you can't do it anonymous if you do it online, I guess. But anyway, in the interest of creating a healthy dialogue between Acts 2 and Mid-Acts folks, shall I stop right there? That's a good interest. There needs to be a healthy dialogue. We do a lot of stone throwing at each other. I will say, maybe it's because Mid-Acts is the minority, but there's a vitriolic stone throwing. You'll be called a heretic by an Acts 2 if you become Mid-Acts. Somebody will call you a heretic. I wish Acts 2 people could just sit down and say, okay, you got some legitimate issues there. I choose to look at it a different way, or I'm interpreting this a different way, or here's the way I'm getting around that. But look, that there are legit issues. One of the things I like about Mid-Acts folk is, a lot of them anyway will say, yeah, this is a problematic issue. This is a tough spot. Acts 2 and Mid-Acts folks need some dialogue. If they would actually listen. That's always the hard part. I would love to facilitate somehow some of my enemies out there. And the majority of my enemies out there are Acts 2 folk who don't like that I'm not an Acts 2. He's Mid-Acts. I would love for them to present their opinion, their position, I should say, present their position. Hope it's not just their opinion, I hope it's based there. Really give a robust argument for why their position is right, why my position is wrong. Try to convince, I'll give them airtime to do it. Try to convince, here is where the Mid-Acts or Randy White's position is, is the same as Acts 2 and Mid-Acts. There's not a singular position, but there's some general positions. Here's why it's wrong. And as we saw, I think it was last year in Right Division Issues and Answers, I put at the end some arguments. I had to kind of use my own words, but I took their argument and said, okay, right dividers or Mid-Acts, here's why you're wrong. Here's one from the Duluth Bible Church. Hyper-dispensationalism, wrongly dividing the word of truth. And I just put it in there. It claims that Paul alone received revelation about the church. Number two, hyper-dispensationalism says the Great Commission was only supposed for the Jewish church. Third, the assertion that Paul preached different gospels than other apostles directly opposes Paul's own writing. Fourth, the script, I've got their 5 arguments right here. And it's a summary of I put in each one of those in most cases, the YouTube, where I just boiled it down into one little letter. Now, if we could actually discuss these things, maybe I would be able to show them you don't understand the position. You're shooting down a straw man. He doesn't exist out there. I'd be against that too. If you just would allow me to speak for a moment and listen to the position, I think you'd have to give it more respect. That's dialogue. It goes both ways. Okay. So the anonymous donor, in the interest of creating a healthy dialogue between Acts 2 and Mid-Oaks folks, would you be willing to participate in a collegial debate about these dispensational positions? If so, who would we want to represent the Acts 2 position? Excellent. I jumped ahead before I read all that, but absolutely, I would, as I've already said, I would love to be in a collegial debate about these. Who would I want to represent? I would want someone who knows the Acts 2 position well. There's a lot of them out there that I think preach the position, but they're not all that well versed in the history and the mechanics of the position. I think that would not work well. I'm trying to be collegial. But what I really want to say is I don't want to embarrass them by not knowing their stuff. And maybe someone like Paul Benware, or someone like Andy Woods, but I would even be open to some who have been more on the attack of the Acts 2 position. Those two haven't so much. Someone who just really doesn't like it. Like, now I've forgotten his name. Dennis Rosker. Dennis Rosker holds the Acts 2 position, and I think holds it intellectually astutely. And he does not at all like the Mid-Acts position. I think that would be kind of fun to take one who really is strongly arguing against it. The Grace and Focus magazine, what's the one which organization is that? One of the Grace organizations has a magazine called Grace and Focus. Last year, about this time, they came out with a magazine on hyper-dispensationalism. I forgot the author's name there, but I'd visit with him about it. He wrote an article against Mid-Acts dispensation. I think it would be excellent. So I would go up against anyone who was intellectually stout. I want it to be an even match. I don't want to be a man fighting a woman. So, and I don't mean that in terms of gender. I'm referring to the Olympics there, but it needs to be evenly matched. And I'll go ahead and put myself up. Whatever scholar you got, whatever the only people I wouldn't do it with Let's say maybe there's a young man out there, and a lot of these debate, I don't know, channels, they're hosted by young men, and I sort of kind of appreciate what they do, and sometimes they even have young debaters, because young people like to debate, and I'm glad, I like that. But sometimes, you know, it wouldn't be a fair fight. So I want it to be a fair fight, if fight is the word. Collegial debate, I mean, there's a sense in which a debate is a fight. Thank you for that from the anonymous donor. Speaking of men, let's go to the man of steel. Do we have Superman on does Superman watch our broadcast? The man of steel wants to know, what does this verse mean? Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7. Before I even read it, let me say, sometimes verses, I would say especially in the book of Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, they do have a lot of context to them, which makes answering this question a little bit slippery. Because there may be something that I don't pick up, and you can pick up with blinders on, so to speak. You just get that, and then when you back up, you find out, ooh, wait a minute, that's wrong. And to give an example before we get into Isaiah 45:7, last night I was in Colossians 3, and if you look in verses 24 and 25 on the right side of the screen, knowing that of the Lord ye shall receive reward of the inheritance, for ye serve the Lord God, but he that doeth wrong shall receive the wrong which he hath done. If you just took those two verses by themselves, I'll tell you what I would do. If I just saw those by themselves, I would say, it looks to me like Paul is referring to Jews in the little flock, and he's telling them about how to achieve things in the kingdom. Or, you know, maybe in my more Acts 2 days, I would have said, oh, this is a message about rewards, and this is how to get various rewards in heaven and avoid some punishment. Now that I did the study on it last night, I would back up and say, oh, wait a minute, you've got to take the context before and after, and this is not about spiritual rewards or spiritual punishments at all. It's about literally earthly inheritances, the things that the slave master could give. So, especially in one of these big, deep books like Isaiah, there's the possibility that I could get it wrong because I'm not bringing in the context. That was a long way around. A long disclaimer up front. But let's now go with Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. I would, first of all, want to know, what is the intent of the passage? Because there is the possibility in Isaiah that he is using some poetic speech. And poetic speech, the issue is not the actual words, but it's the meaning. For example, Robert Frost, I believe it was, said, two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled, and that has made all the difference. He never went to two roads that diverged in a yellow wood. It's all symbolic. So, though I'm not saying this is symbolic, I am saying, as one who takes the Bible literally, my point, and I write about this in Dispensationalism for Dummies, my point is that we take the Bible literally, and when it's figurative, we literally take it figuratively. So is he giving a figure? Is the point that I am powerful 360 degrees? Wherever you go, I'm not worried about losing this. I got it. I'm supreme and I am sovereign. That might be the main point. So then, if we could show that, and here's what I would want to do to show this. I would want to say, look, in the context of Isaiah chapter 45 especially, here's some symbolism, here's some poetry. One of the things you could do, and I don't have one in front of me, the Scofield Bible does this, but one of the things you could do is look on Isaiah chapter 45 if you've got a Bible that aligns the actual type poetically, not in block paragraph form, but poetically. The easiest way to do this is go to the Psalms. If your Psalms are straight block text, which is what we've got on here, block text, then it's not displaying it. We know the Psalms or the Song of Solomon. Most places in Song of Solomon you could look. And if the left edge is ragged, don't worry about the right edge, but if the left edge looks ragged, then they are displaying it poetically. So if you've got a Bible like that, look then to Isaiah chapter 45, and is it displayed that way? Again, I'm sorry I don't have one in front of me, so I can't tell you. But if it is, that tells us it is Hebrew poetry. Therefore, we might need to take this poetically. Now, on poetry, should you force all of the individual issues? No. Two roads diverged into yellow wood. It doesn't matter what that road name was, doesn't matter what this road name was, because there wasn't any roads. So you wouldn't take it literally. If this is poetry, would you take these literally, or would this just say, hey, everything's in my domain? There's one possibility that I can't really answer because I don't have all the resources here to check out the context of Isaiah 45:7. Then let's pretend for a moment like we decide it's not poetry, it is literal. Okay. I form the light. That we can easily see. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Heavens, darkness and void, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. I formed the light. We could take that to mean I am the creator of photons. No problem. I create darkness. Now, once again, there are symbolic ways to take this. If you can do it literal, do it literal. But if the whole context is poetic, go poetic. But I create darkness. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was formless and void, and darkness hovered over the face of the deep. Did I say that wrong? God did create darkness when he created space prior to photons. There is darkness out there. And then he separated the darkness from the light. I think in doing that, he probably created matter for the photons to reflect off, if we're going to talk scientifically. So he did form the light. He did create darkness. Okay, I make peace. There are many times, of course, where God made peace. I'm sure we could find some cross-references. On all these, by the way, I would check with Treasury of Scripture Knowledge and see what the various cross-references are for each one of these pieces. So God makes peace. He made peace with Israel, I think we could get quite a few examples in there of I make peace. Now, he says also, I create evil. I create evil. Here is where you could I think, do the wrong thing by taking evil as it is used in the modern vernacular. Evil today is, let's say, demonic, satanic. Now, did he create the demonic? I'm going to say no. He created the one that became the adversary. But that was the devil's free will to do that. The Lord cursed him, didn't destroy him, so allowed him to exist. Is that the creation of evil? Not so much. I here would go back to the Oxford English Dictionary and find out what evil meant in 1611. And you don't even have to go back to the Oxford Dictionary. You can take that particular word evil in English or in the underlying Hebrew, look up all the times it's used, and let Scripture interpret itself. And you're going to see that evil in the King James Bible was havoc, mayhem, destruction. All those things are evil. That's the way evil was used back then. So, evil is the opposite of peace. I make peace, I make evil. I create evil. Now, let me also say that this does not mean that all peaceful situations are made by God. Nor does it mean that all chaotic situations are not made by God. I think mankind can make a lot of peaceful situations. Hindus do it. I think that mankind can create a lot of mayhem. Politicians do it all the time. International Olympic Committee does it. But can God do it, and has God done it? Absolutely. And will God do it in the future? Absolutely. I, the Lord, do all these things. Now, I really kind of think this is a poetic way of saying I am all powerful, I can do whatever I want. But he gives several illustrations there along the way. I hope that is helpful. Man of steel. It's a bird. It's a plane. No. It's the man of steel. Oh, that was Helen in Virginia who asked about the earth renewing itself. Thanks, Helen. I've got a number of questions here that I won't have time to all take in. But I'm going to go with this one, anonymous question. Was Mary, the mother of Jesus, sinless? Not in the way that we think of sinless. Mary, the mother of Jesus, was righteous. That's either in Matthew chapter 1 or in Luke chapter 1. And I'm going to go with, because I don't know that exact passage and I'm a little out of time, I'm going to go with Luke 1:6, which is actually about Zechariah and Elizabeth, which says they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and orders of the Lord, blameless. I would put Mary in that same position, that she is righteous before God because she is walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord, blameless. Joseph is a righteous man. Joseph, being a righteous man, not wanting to disgrace her, desired to put her away secretly. When the angel of the Lord came to her and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife. That which is found in her is of the Holy Ghost. She will conceive. So there is a righteousness of the law that came to Zechariah, Elizabeth. Joseph had achieved it, Mary had achieved it, but that is different from being sinless, because the law had ways of atoning for sin. Do we have an example of Mary's sin? I don't think so. But we don't have an example of Elizabeth's sin, and we don't consider Elizabeth to be sinless. The Catholics have what is called the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception. What they do is take what I think is somewhat of a misused doctrine of the virgin birth that Protestants and Orthodoxy holds. I do believe in the virgin birth, but I think we make the wrong application to it. But anyway, they say, well, to have a virgin birth, you have to have a sinless mother. And so they go, the Immaculate Conception is actually of Mary, not of Jesus. So Mary somehow was brought about, not in normal means. And her life was as different to humanity as was the life of Jesus Christ, who was human but was as different from humanity as could ever be. So Mary, in terms of not having, Mary in terms of being divine in nature like Jesus, no. If that's what you mean by, was Mary, the mother of Jesus, sinless? If you mean the Catholic doctrine of the Immaculate Conception, I don't think there's enough to go on there. Someday, I'm doing this Why series, someday we should take some of these Catholic doctrines, like the doctrine of Immaculate Conception, and see what is their actual argument. Where are they getting this? How are they doing it? How much is presupposition? How much is an assumption necessary in order to build another doctrine? How much of it is the wrongly dividing the word of truth? Where do they get these things? That'd be fun. I'll have to remember that. Okay, I am out of time. Sorry, I've got a number of anonymous questions in there, and Order of the Valiant. Sorry, I've got a question of yours in there, and I will get to those on Monday when we're back again for Ask the Theologian. This Sunday, why are some people part of the New Apostolic Reformation? If you don't know about NAR, you're going to learn some about it this Sunday. And we'll look at why do these people hold this? What is this position? It'll be fun, 9:45 a.m. And then Absalom at 10:45 in the life and times of King David. We've got the Davidic Chronicles, Volume 1, coming out in Branson. Will be the first place anybody will be able to get that. About 220 pages on the life and times of King David in what we're calling the Davidic Chronicles, Volume 1 by Randy White. Hope you'll check that out. And Tracing Cain by Randy White, also available at the Branson Conference. And then after that, we'll put it up in the Dispensational Publishing about that time, too, to ship as soon as we get back from that. And a number of other good books. The Gospel of Mark, for example, our commentary, Volume 1 of that. We've got some good new stuff and some good teaching for that in our Prove It book and series at Branson. RandyWhiteMinistries.org/Branson. Still time to sneak you in, but hurry up. Thanks. Thanks very much for being with us here today. You're always a blessing, and I look forward again to you having a great weekend and to seeing you soon. Take care.